Good afternoon. My name is Brian Reif, and I'd like to welcome you to today's Activity Strong webinar, Life Enrichment and Value-Based Care. For today's webinar, we are providing one free NAB, NCCAP, NCCDP, NCTRC, and NZSRTD CEU credits. To be eligible for the CEU credits, you need to remain on the webinar for the full hour. At the end of the webinar, I will be providing you with the required post-webinar CEU survey evaluation link in the webinar chat room box, and you will also receive it via email this afternoon. Please make sure that you check your junk and your spam folder for this email. The survey must be completed by midnight Eastern Time this Thursday. If you have any questions, please email us at webinars@linksenior.com. EU certificates will be issued by email before the end of day on Friday. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Brian. Welcome, everyone. Excited to have you all. This is such an interesting topic. We're going to share tons and have a great conversation. My name is Charles de Villemijn, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of Link Senior. And I'm super excited to be with my friend Murray Mercier with Poncle Care. How are you today?
I'm doing well, Charles, and yourself?
Good. Hey, I'm seeing your name there, and I never asked you, do you realize how French your name sounds and looks?
Yes, I do. And there's a family story behind there. I'll just say that once upon a time, my last name was Mercer, Mercer. So I'm not actually French. There's no French in my lineage at all.
My brain is stopping on the 5 first letters. But anyway, welcome, Murray. I'm going to introduce you in more details in a second. But everyone, again, welcome. It's our Activity Strong Executive Edition. So two things about this. One is Activity Strong was started by Link Senior. We run this amazing webinar platform, educational platform, to acknowledge and empower activity and life enrichment professionals everywhere, actually worldwide. And we're very excited and honored to be able to partner with great organizations that include Activity Connection, NAP, and NCAP. And the other piece about today is as a reminder, our executive edition is all about elevating the conversation around activities and life enrichment, and obviously identifying the topics that are going to be the most relevant to anyone within senior living. So Murray, again, I know you have decades of experience in that aspect, and we're going to have a wonderful conversation. As a note to the audience, we were supposed to have another panelist today by the name of Charles Mann, a dear friend of mine, of ours actually, and he's the founder and CSO, which is Chief Sales Officer with AccuShield. I don't know if you're aware of AccuShield. It's a wonderful company. They do great work, and they do also a lot of work around value-based care. And unfortunately, Charles got COVID today, so he unfortunately was not able to join. But we did prepare this pretty well, I think. And to the best that I will share obviously some of my thoughts, but obviously a lot of Charles's man's thoughts about the particular topic. So that's kind of the intro. Just for background, I've explained who I am. I'm the CEO and Link and co-founder of Link Senior. I've been in the industry for now 17 years, actually. Link Senior has very kind of strong values that we're very proud of. One of them is old people are cool. I have stickers here. My kids have T-shirts. It's all about celebrating age and life, regardless of age, actually. And an activity strong is why we're here to celebrate and honor and empower activity professionals. One note that I forgot is if you're using the chat, because there are many people using the chat, make sure you select the everyone drop down, because by default it goes to hosts and panelists. So if you want to make sure that everyone sees your valuable contribution, make sure you pick the everyone. And then if you have a question for Murray and myself, just because it's difficult to follow the chat, a very chatty bunch, as we say, and it's great. We'll use the Q&A feature of the webinar. So just a quick note about Link Senior. We are a resident engagement platform. We work with a number of amazing senior living and long-term care operators, and a lot of our work is about helping to elevate engagement and activities. We're very proud of the fact that I think we're the only solution out there to be fully clinically proven. We are evidence-based. It was a year-long study done with actually 3 buildings that had point-click care. We're able to correlate usage of other services and outcomes. And if you want to learn more, please feel free to reach out. All right, so for today, I have the distinct pleasure of sharing a little bit about the objectives. So I know that value-based care sometimes might feel like a big word. Some of us might maybe not heard about it before. So we'll explain that for the core principle, and then we'll go into why are we talking this in the first place? What's the impact of life enrichment on senior well-being in the context of value-based care? And then we're going to talk about practical strategies to implement effective life enrichment initiatives to help that great movement. So in terms of introduction, I guess, Mary, besides kind of saying how French your name is, I can also say that you're the Senior Living Market Director with point-click care. And I think what I've always been amazed by you, Mary, is you've been with point-click care for numbers of years now, but you talk about your senior living experience with such passion and such love for the market that it's, on one way, you feel a little bit like me because I'm part of a technology company, but on the other hand, you also have something that I truly I've never had, which is running, being on the floor, engaging with teams and residents. So why don't we just start by having you introduce yourself a little bit, and then we can get into that conversation.
Sure. So thanks for having me, Charles and Linked Senior. I love that this conversation is happening. I'm also very enthusiastic about the opportunities that are here at our doorstep and just beyond. But just for a little background, again, my name is Murray Mercier, of no French descent. But I am a 3rd generation senior care worker. My grandmother was a nursing home administrator, so as soon as I was born into this world in 1981, I started hanging out at nursing homes. And I had no predisposition. I wasn't working there. I was literally there just hanging out and seeing all the wonderful people and the vibrancy and just a bunch of grandmothers and grandfathers really, giving me a lot of attention and treating me like the little kid that I was. And it was awesome. Fast forward through education and getting my education in technology, I took a gerontology course as an elective, and my senses were shocked. I saw something that was completely different than what I had seen back in the 80s, which was your traditional nursing home with wheelchair ties and shower rooms and very sterile, and then the bleach smell and a little bit more void of what we would call that home feeling. But what I saw when I was doing my gerontology elective was something way different. I saw a community with a kitchen and a family room and activities and people getting engaged. And I was like, oh, this is a way better living. The people didn't change. People were the same. The people still wanted to be vibrant and feel deeply known. But the environment around them had changed and the way they were living had changed. And I was like, I want to be a part of this because I thought we could take it even further. So that's what I've been doing for the last 25 years. As you said, the first half of my professional career was designing and opening and operating new styles of assisted living. And I got tied in with the Eden Alternative and kind of learned from them the idea of loneliness and helplessness and boredom and what are the antidotes and how do we create communities that are void of institutionalism, and just got really mildly obsessed with it. So I kind of dedicated my life to really sharing that message and desegregating people who have physical and cognitive needs and re-engaging them in life and all the things that it takes to build and maintain a successful community that has no end goal. It's a garden, as Dr. Bill Thomas says. We have to tend to it, and things come back around over and over again. You all know better than me because you're in it day to day. So I truly love what we're doing here together as a community.
That's great. That's a great intro And I love what you said about your start, which is, yeah, a very early start.
Yep.
So why don't we kind of dive into the topic? So obviously, value-based care is a topic. Obviously, we talk about it. Charles Mann's organization, AccuShield, did an amazing conference. You and I were there a couple of weeks ago, and it was only on that topic in Atlanta. So it was a 2-day event only on the concept of value-based care. And kudos to them, and actually you, Mary, because you were a sponsor there, for seeing this, because I don't think there's been kind of a focus conference on that. But, you know, some of our audience members obviously weren't there. Do you mind sharing a little bit about, you know, what does the future hold about that concept, and how do you and Point of Care think about value-based care? Do you mind explaining that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So, and I'll kind of just start off by reiterating that I'm very enthusiastic about the opportunity that senior living has, and I'm very emboldened and feel you all should be too, to get out there and participate and speak that much louder about what it really takes to create community. For all the crazy stuff going on in the world and all the bad things happening, I'm seeing twice as many good things happening, and people seeking to understand and educate themselves better, and to be more deeply known and to deeply know others that much more. And value-based care, we're not like, senior living is not going to the value-based care shop and getting their rebate or whatever. But it's a mechanism that is actually supportive of our overall objective of creating sustainable community. And value-based care is the way, as we move forward into the future, that healthcare providers will be paid by healthcare payers. It used to be a fee-for-service world where you would do something and then you would get paid for doing that thing. In the value-based care world, the easiest way to think about it is there are three cornerstones, three mechanisms by which a healthcare provider is going to get paid. They're going to get paid by a better patient experience. And how do you give a better patient experience? You got to more deeply know the individual. A better healthcare outcome, which again, how do I achieve a better healthcare outcome? I get to know you as a person that much more deeply. And cost savings. So were they able to save some money because they achieved a better outcome faster because they more deeply knew that individual? So really the cornerstones of value-based care are those three things: better patient experience, better healthcare outcomes, and reduced cost of healthcare. Those things are actually in line with the physical kind of support needs that we need in our communities for senior care, right? So we automatically become more valuable to the healthcare institution. When I was in the community, I had to knock down hospital walls with bribes and food all the time to get them to pay attention to me. Now, suddenly, they have the desire to actually leverage us because we in the community know our population that's sitting there. So it's a big change in the winds. That's going to be a huge benefit for us. Now, if we get really good at showing how valuable we are to healthcare providers and healthcare payers, we can actually say, hey, you need to pay us for some of the cost savings that we're driving you. And that's really the premise of what we're talking about relative to the business of senior living and the business of healthcare. But I'm equally as excited about the experience that it's going to drive and the way my community members are going to feel because of it. So hopefully that was pretty clear. And if you have anything to add, Charles.
Yeah, I mean, it is clear. You know, I remember Charles is the other Charles, the better Charles, Charles Mann. You know, his point was that he also, a little bit like you, fell into senior living through his family. You know, his father built his first community in the 80s, and it was fee for service. It was not really healthcare, it was really hospitality. And in some ways, this has changed. This has not changed enough, but the big thing is that the residents are living longer and they come to us with much more needs. We have assisted living residents that sometimes look like memory care residents, you know, 5-10 years ago. And so, like you said, it's a big opportunity for us to do well by doing good. And I don't know how you think about it, but maybe I can share the slide that Charles had about that.
Yeah, I love that. And
so maybe as a, yeah,
go ahead.
so good.
Well, so
I was just going to say that. Yeah.
You go.
Okay. Now I was just going to say that I forget what I said now. So your turn now.
While you bring that up, now I forgot what I was going to say. Oh, this is what I was going to say. And this is another thing is, value, a big part of healthcare, a big motion in healthcare is that healthcare wants to be delivered in the cheapest environment it can be delivered. Right. So when we look at our resident population, we say, can they be taken care of in a skilled nursing? Well, that's cheaper than a hospital bed. Can they be taken care of in an assisted living? Well, that's cheaper than a skilled nursing bed. Can they be taken care of in an independent living instead of an assisted living? That's the next point in the conversation. And some of you in your community might be even in an organization that's doing aging in place or starting to increase services in the independent living. No matter how sick a person is, how many diagnoses they have, it behooves us to understand who they are earlier in the process. And value-based care actually supports that. It wants to more deeply understand its patient population before they ever get sick. So that's just the thing that you made me think of there.
No, and as some of you might know, like I was very lucky years ago, I got certified as an activity director. And, when I hear you speak, Mara, in a way, that's what we do in activities, right? We want to know the person. Technically, since 87, Albright's about getting the person at the highest level of well-being. And it is preventative, but it's also about, hey, if the person has behavior expression because of dementia, instead of using antipsychotics, which unfortunately is still sometimes too much of, why don't we consider, just person-centered engagement and music and all of that? And so that's a kind of tied to this particular slide where I think this is one of the most exciting things for any activity director on planet Earth, which is to say that outcomes, the health outcomes, the quality of life of people, if you look at what impacts that, what has the potential of improving someone's life, there is a social and economic factor, there's the health behavior, and the physical environment. And so these are non-clinical factors, right? A lot of these are driven by the experience to what you were saying, Mary. They're not all by activities, but if activities is a community thing, like everyone's doing the job, like everyone's helping, then yeah, like activities is leading the charge on that. But the interesting thing is that the cost is completely outbalanced. Like all clinical teams are 88% of the cost. And, I don't think we're trying to say that clinical is bad. We got to fire all the nurses, they're bad people, and so on and so on. It's not the case. They are essential. But the point is, maybe we're not spending the money correctly. Maybe, again, as an activity director, I'll say, maybe $1 spent with activities might have a better return on investment under the right condition than elsewhere. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, Murray.
Yeah, I mean, spot on. The very first community that I opened was 15 residents living in 8 or 9 apartments, smack dab in the middle of an independent living community apartment complex. And I only had enough budget for 4 hours of nurses a week. So I had one RN for 4 hours a week. So I already knew that I wanted everybody to be more deeply known and to be more engaged in the process, but that in itself really cemented it. And I will tell you, I loved my nurse. I loved her to death. But my life enrichment director was the key to success in that community. She was the one that was understanding the behavior of the individual beyond the physical diagnosis that they had. She sought to understand their life story, understand everything that made that person tick. So when it did, and these were highly complex, no locked unit, and these were Parkinson's, Lewy body dementia. They were advanced Alzheimer's. They were no short-term memory. They were heavy elopement. There were all kinds of complexities to the individual. But because we didn't first off, we didn't separate staff from community members. Like, right? If you were coming into this building, then you were held to a social responsibility to understand the people in there, the workers, the residents, the family members, the home health agencies, and the hospice nurses that would come in. And because we created that network of dialogue that wasn't just in a clinical silo, it allowed, first off, for those individuals to participate in the community. And one of my core philosophies was you are expected to receive as much as you give to this community. Now, it might not be in the form of physical assistance, but there's emotional and environmental components to it as well that everybody can give back. I love to play the piano. Any community I walk into, I seek out the piano. That's my first thing I do. But allowing them to participate meant that when a resident did have a situation, their emotions went through the roof and they started to become combative or whatever. In a lot of instances, my life enrichment director was able to avoid the medication. She was able to avoid the call to 911 and the ambulance coming in and the transfer to hospital simply because she knew that individual deeply. And they were there at our care collaboration. So I'm curious to know, do any of you from the life enrichment side, do you participate in the service kind of coordination conversations around your residents and that 6-month care planning meeting that has to happen? That was really critical to the success of, what now is termed, value-based care and total wellness. But we were doing kind of early before any of those terms came along. So that's the big thing you made me think with that picture is we had just as much investment on the life enrichment and the dining and giving time for people to participate beyond their physical job. That was the key to success.
I don't know if you realize you asked the question, Mary, but we've got a number of people that said yes, they participate in these meetings. Awesome. And awesome. Yes, 100%.
Awesome.
But we could do more and so on. So we have a lot of people, and so I think my immediate reaction when I see that is that there is a little bit of already value-based care coordination, right? But one of the earlier topics a couple of minutes ago was from somebody by the name of Billy Tuesday, who was saying that activities was the heart of the community, and I couldn't agree more. No one wants to live in a hospital. And what's the difference between these places and the community? It's activities, it's life enrichment. It's the person who in the morning, enters the building and goes, how am I gonna bring purpose to my residents? So I don't know if you have any thoughts about this.
Yeah, I do. And all I can say is, and I would love to hear how everybody else kind of operationalizes this from a business perspective, but I can just tell you that we focused as much energy on the planning as we did the event itself. So we put just as much of an operational focus on the experience of planning life enrichment as we did actually experiencing life enrichment. As somebody who loves to grill out, I very rarely eat my food, but I sure love smoking it for 8 hours. And so if that's a good comparison for you.
I like it. And actually that kind of takes us to the next question. You were starting to talk about planning and so on. Sorry, and I don't want to miss on what Charles Mann was saying. I'll get into that in a second. I guess, Murray, when you think about people on the line today, right, obviously all come or touch in a way life enrichment or they like the concept. Do you have specific examples of how they might be doing value-based care, whether they know about it or not really? Do you have examples of that?
Yeah, I mean, the cool thing is that I guarantee you that 100% of the people on the phone are doing things that relate to value-based care and benefiting from value-based care. We as an industry are very much looking at the foundations at this point and really solidifying the operational investment, staffing, technology, and processes that are going to facilitate as much success as possible. So if your organization is getting started in value-based care, these are 3 highly important components to being ready to really maximize potential value. I love to operate my communities at maximum potential, not at bottom line management, right? I'm not just trying to squeeze the next penny. I want to maximize our potential as a great place to live and a great place to work and a great place to engage with. So the things that I made sure that we had in place. Do I have a complete and now digitized? I was working on paper. Thank God I don't have to do that anymore, but a complete digitized record of the individual. And that should start at the first moment that you interact with a prospective resident, right? I start collecting information. Am I collecting the right information, and is it complete? The second thing that you need, and we talked a little bit about, is a real-time service coordination mechanism. And that's a combination of people and technology. Do I have tools that allow me to communicate either from the wellness team into the community or from the community into the wellness team at a dime's notice? Value-based care demands that we're able to change service at a moment's notice. And I'm not talking sticky notes on time clocks and shift change binders that are thicker than my head. I'm talking about a real mechanism by which everybody in the community who needs to know a piece of information can instantly know it. And then thirdly is, and I love what I'm seeing right now, because we used to be like in the corner, like, don't look at us. We don't want to, like, no more regulation. We don't want to get in trouble. Like, we're just over here doing our thing because we love to do it. We're opening our doors and we're saying, look at us and participate with us. And we have a lot of value that we can bring to the larger community. So really making sure that not only everybody within the walls of the community is deeply known, but that the partners and the things that sit outside of your community but can drive value are deeply known. And for the case of value-based care, that means, do I have a relationship with my hospital? Do I have a relationship with the skilled nursing down the street that 60% of my residents are going to? Do I have a preferred home health agency? Do I have a preferred hospice agency, right? And do I meet with them regularly? Do I understand what they value? Do I understand what they think is risky? And am I able to communicate with them clearly between our business and their business? These to me are the three kind of foundational critical components to success that you're probably doing some of right now. It's just saying that we're doing it and it's documenting that we're doing it. Any reaction to that, Charles?
No, I mean, I think it was something I was going to say for the end, but I'll say it now. You know, we had this question for us, like, what's the one thing that we would like to change for this to happen faster? And I think that for me, in activities, we just want to get credit for the work we do, right? I see too many activity directors doing amazing work day in, day out. They plan at home every weekend. They're thinking about activities for next week. There's just so much passion and work that goes into what they do, but then they often just don't get credit for that. And in a way, it's very discouraging, but on the other hand, it's kind of very exciting because documentation, you know, some people say it's still like a guild compliance. I'm not going to get into that rabbit hole, but I'm a big fan of saying, hey, this is the work we do. Look at how great we are, because we do great work. So my first reaction to what you were saying is, yeah, I mean, transparency. We want to brag about how great senior living is because it is an amazing product. Sorry, I get excited, but that was my thought.
Yeah.
You know, one thing also, maybe it's so that people understand what it means overall, is if I was your father, right, Murray, and I live with you and you cared with me kind of in an okay way, but at one point we all decided it was better for me to go to an assisted living place. Very likely my insurance is going to make more money when I move, because my quality of life, my outcomes, the system is going to know me better.
Yeah.
And all of these, obviously, the nurse has something to do and blah, blah. It's not like you were doing a bad job, right? You were probably doing a great job. But the point is that with that collaboration, that interdisciplinary team, activities, big part activities, and that money, that margin from the insurance, I think what we're trying to say here is that we should all that's the opportunity for us. Why is it that the payer is getting all that money? Does that make sense?
It does completely. And I kind of verbally talked through this in the last conversation, but this kind of gives you a visual of how you are assisting the healthcare ecosystem. You're interacting with them. Sorry, you're interacting with them from the time a resident has moved in. You've already got a relationship with them, right? You are interacting when they
Yep.
go out to their provider visits. You are standing there ready to engage when a resident does have to go to the hospital, so you can help them make a better decision. Not every resident needs to go to the SNF, right? We need some
Yep.
of them to come home with home health. There's all kinds of options out there. It's not just one blanket thing. Now, what happens when you do all those things? And I want to stop and say that I love, and I never thought of this, but I love the wave of branded wellness programs that I'm seeing come out of senior living operators. Watermark has 360 Well. Health Dimensions Group has Enrichment Beyond Expectations. LCS has the Health and Wellness Navigation. Brookdale's got Health Plus. We need more of these. And this is a way that you can start to, from a brand recognition perspective, get credit for that work that you're doing when you're looking out into the general community, when you're looking out at the city around you and the prospective residents and the other kind of things you want to be attracting in, dining programs and more activities and symphonies and things like that. Like, if you have this recognition of brand, you'll get more participation. Now, from the healthcare side of it, what happens and how do we prove our value? It's not as complex as you might think it is. When a resident moves into your community, as Charles said, they become more profitable to their payer instantly. Something that we don't get credit for as an industry is that almost every single resident that moves into one of your communities becomes more functional. They become better health-wise than they were just moments before moving into your community. They might have fought tooth and nail to move in, but it happens almost always. I can't think of a time when it didn't happen. But we also know transition causes decline, and so there's some murky area in there. But of the organizations that we took just a quick snapshot of data on, who have launched these branded wellness programs, who on the healthcare side are extracting value from value-based care. And all they did was they made sure that the resident got to their annual wellness check with their physician. They had a complete resident chart, and they had preferred partners, and they had that real-time service coordination capability. Here's what they saw. They saw, and the biggest numbers here is they reduced ER utilization by over half. That's a lot. Hospitalizations were reduced by half. Think of that. Think about if like half the residents that would have gone to the hospital didn't, and what that does to not only benefit the payers, because now every time somebody goes to the ER, it's $6,000, like out the payer's wallet, $6,000. Every time a resident gets actually admitted to the hospital, $16,000 to $20,000. Just write the check without like even thinking about what the treatment or the outcome is going to be. Right? That's a large amount of money if you think about reducing it by half. Now you can go and say, hey, look at this. In this population here, in your payer, like who's subscribed to you as an insurance payer, I've saved you half your hospitalizations and half your ER visits. So I've actually saved you $1.5 million this year. I think I deserve a little bit of money there, right? So that's the basis of leveraging value-based care for revenue. But even if you don't do that, think about the length of stay dollars, right? It costs us about $40,000 to $60,000 to change over an apartment when a resident moves out, not to mention the cost of bringing on the next resident. When you think about that, when you think about doing this branded wellness program, well, I've grown my reputation. I've increased my length of stay. That means I've got more time to build a resident pipeline. So before you know it, and what I experienced at my first community was I had a 2-year waiting list after about 3 months of operation, because they're like, that's someplace I actually want to live. Nobody was being forced to move into this place. Residents were like, can I have the next apartment, please? So there's all
Yeah.
kinds of intrinsic value along with the opportunity to go negotiate with what is a $1 trillion insurance industry from a healthcare perspective. If I look at just the assisted living residents, just AL residents in the United States, they cost health insurance payers about $18 billion a year. We are saving them meaningful dollars now. And if we focus even that much harder, we're going to be saving them a lot more money. And you could get a piece of that pie.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like someone in the chat is saying, these are amazing stats. I also want to share, Charles Mann, who, again, with AccuShield, who can join us. One of the things that I feel is so cool about some of their work is about social isolation and, this whole idea of the project love meter. So if some of you are not familiar, AccuShield is a great company. They have this sign-in kiosk. So when people walk into the community, they sign in, they sign out. So because they have the information about the residents, they can see very quickly who are the residents that are the least visited. So about a year and a half ago, there's somebody by the name of TK King with AccuShield who said, we got to do something about it. And they launched, and I'm putting in the chat here, and I'm going to share my screen. They launched this initiative that I feel is so cool, which is all about identifying residents that are isolated to obviously target that isolation. And then obviously when you do that, you reduce depression, you reduce mental decline. And guess what that is? That is clinical outcomes, but potentially also money. So they are able to leverage their existing technology. And a lot of it is also, they facilitate like a group of volunteers nationwide, and they work with the Life Enrichment team. So I thought that was a great idea. And if you want to learn more, obviously contact them. But I think it's a great example of things that are happening today as well.
Yeah, all
And
all those total wellness programs, they're not total wellness program healthcare coordination, right? I love 360 Well at Watermark. It's mind, body, so there's healthcare, community, and
yeah,
soul. You have to round it out. It's not 2 dimensions of total wellness, it's 8 dimensions of total wellness. And part of the challenge from a technology perspective is like Point Click Care's got great healthcare data and they've got a great healthcare collaboration network, but we're not fully integrated into the kind of life enrichment side of things, that soul in that community. And so it's nobody out there has, until Charles, really provided what is a more comprehensive wellness score. We're really good at telling you your physical wellness score, but we're not so good on the other side. And so I applaud Charles and the love meter because that starts to bring in logic around community and soul measurements that will actually be able to help see the total wellness of an individual.
Yeah. And, as we're going down this road of giving examples of things that exist already, I know there are sometimes physicians that are in nursing homes that will prescribe music and memory. I've seen this. I've seen pads of people saying, and that is exactly that. It's the doctor being smart, knowing how great activities can be, and saying, listen, before giving the person an antipsychotic or an antidepressant because whatever, why don't we try that first? And often it works. And the big deal here is look at the cost. What's the cost of music and memory? It's almost zero, right? It's the time of the activity director, which is valuable, don't get me wrong, but it is nothing compared to the cost of an antipsychotic, which can be $300 or $400 a month per resident. So that's what we mean. And obviously we all know about music therapy that can be reimbursed as well. So there's things happening today already that we can just build upon as well.
Yeah. I found a group of therapists. I live in Denver, and that's where I opened my first couple of communities. And I found a group of therapists that just wanted to donate their time. And they wanted to donate it to folks with cognitive decline in locked memory care units. So after my first community, I did go to a larger community, 250 units that had a memory care. But they would come in twice a week, and they were fascinated for their own education and more deeply understanding that which troubles people with cognitive decline. And I would think that there are more and more people out there that are not only willing to give back, but are trying to increase their education into the space. So definitely be on the lookout for those folks. The other thing I was going to mention is, so home and community-based services. I spent a lot of time on the phone trying to maximize my residents' benefits, not because I was getting any cash back, but because I knew that holistically it supported the total wellness of the community if I could maximize the benefits, even if it's just free transportation or an extra meal. Or it's kind of crazy what some of these insurance payers are offering now. And if you don't know what insurance your residents are on, all you have to do is ask your wellness director to get a list from their pharmacy. 80% of our residents are using our long-term care pharmacies right now, and those pharmacies have their insurance information. And so you can go there and you can actually start to peel through. I went to a Medicare Advantage conference this year, and because I wanted to hear directly from their mouths what was important to them and what they saw as their biggest risk. And I was fairly shocked to find out that the number one thing they were talking about was creating community for their patients, for their enrollees outside of healthcare interactions. And I'm like, sorry, I've got like 40,000 communities sitting here and we're doing that every day. And so I would encourage you, like if you have a local Medicare Advantage program and 40% of your residents are on it, reach out to them. Say, hey, let's have a conversation. We'd love to have you come to an event or even bring your members to the picnic on 4th of July. That's what's going to kind of break down this siloed wall between senior living and the rest of the world. It's things like that. So just an idea.
But if I, like what you just said here, when you say create community, I mean, in activities, that's one of the very first things someone does. Like in activities, just because you have to, you're going to start thinking about groups.
Yeah.
Like who are the French? Who likes playing the guitar, like piano? Like who should be friends with Murray?
Yeah.
Let's pick up all the piano lovers, right? And then we build a calendar and do all these things. But that is what's truly unique about activities, is that we think as a community first. And I think and I agree with you, there's just so much, potential, but also credit we should be getting today for sure.
Yep.
I guess I just want to check on time, Murray, because I feel like we could talk all afternoon, and I'm sure you have things to do, we have all things to do, but just kind of going down our flow here. What's blocking this for you, do you think? If there was can you help us identify why isn't it not happening faster, basically?
We are risk adverse. I mean, I would say that first and foremost is that we as people are risk adverse to other people. Like, right? It would break my heart if Charles even got a splinter today. So I want to do anything and everything to keep him from getting that splinter. But so then we get kind of stuck in this surplus safety, and we kind of get stuck in what we've been doing. So I would say that just lack of willingness to change probably gets in the way. The other, from a value-based care perspective, payers and practitioners, and I should have said this to begin with, senior living accesses value-based care through practitioners. So another big momentum shift we're seeing, and we saw it at the value-based care workshop, is there are more and more practitioners who are specifically gearing their practices towards senior living communities. So that's another partnership that you could look to seek out, but you need to make sure that you are in line with a value-based care practitioner group, because the reality is that only about 20-30% of even a value-based care practitioner group is actually billing through value-based care. The rest of their billing is going through fee-for-service. So some of this is just going to take time, but it's like the right time. I think Bob Kramer from Nick said it, like, he's like, we got 6 years. And if we don't do it ourselves in 6 years, another industry is going to come in and disrupt us and do it for us in a different way. Right. So there's
Yeah.
definitely not, there's a window of opportunity here that's nice sized, but every day it's going to shrink because by 2030, all Medicare enrollees have to be inside of a value-based care programming model.
Mhm. That's pretty fast. You know, Brian Rife was actually putting a comment in the chat. He was saying something to the fact that he has a friend who's an activity director that works for a Medicare replacement plan. And that person goes into a community with clients to do activities. So that's, I hadn't heard about that, but that's an interesting model as well, is that the plan itself is sending activity directors. So that's cool.
Yeah.
You know, I think I just want to go back to my notes here. Charles Mann was saying things a little bit like you, which is that we're on the, he feels, well, he told us he feels that we're a little bit on the precipice of this because it's, in a way, it's too early. We lack data, but when we'll have data, it's gonna snowball. And it's just not a turnkey overnight success because there's a lot of collaboration that needs to happen, but it will happen. So my comment is, I mean, for me, the biggest, and obviously I'm biased when I say this, but for me, the number one reason we're not moving faster is the fact that activities isn't recognized enough. Like
So,
if every,
yeah,
huh?
keep going.
I honestly, no, I was just going to say that I strongly believe, and this is one of my, so I believe the world is better every day an activity director is born. If you could have buildings where every activity director had an assistant, and an activity director that has an assistant gets another assistant, that's better for everyone. There's not one person who's going to suffer from that, and the budget will not suffer from that neither.
No doubt.
I know of big operators right now in their budget, they've recognized the need and they're plugging assistants, a part-time assistants anywhere there's only one person. And I think that is the future.
I completely.
Sorry, I get excited, but that's
No.
the future.
Get more excited. And I just wanted to point out, because this kind of ties into that, Riley Stutz said lack of motivation is a barrier too. I think some healthcare members around me do not feel they're responsible to do life enrichment. Life enrichment should not just fall on the recreational therapists, which I kind of love that terminology, especially from a branded wellness program in a high acuity senior living. We have life enrichment recreational therapists. Like that's so cool to me. Is that an actual certification? I don't know. That's cool.
Of course, CTRS.
It is.
It's a great certification. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. I need to learn more about that. But yeah, I quickly found out, and my mentors when I was coming up, they kind of had this idea for non-institutional senior living, and I just had a lot of energy in my 20s to go make it happen. But they really helped me understand if you take care of the people who take care of the community, then that's going to take care of your business. And although we love to say everybody's a salesperson, I'm like, no, everybody's a recreational therapist.
But yes, and I mean, rec therapist, yeah, it's an advanced degree, they're highly recognized, highly professional discipline. But I mean, to your point here, Mary, one thing that I always like to say is that even if you did not want to, you could not do engagement. You can't do no activities. There's always something happening somewhere. And so the idea is that the only big question for our in senior living is how good you want to become, right? Or how bad you want to stay, right? And I think that's where you see all these branded programs that you said, these organizations that have said or are in the process of saying, activities experience is essential for our residents, our teams, our business. Let's be strategic about it. So that's what, it's another thing that excites me.
Yeah.
One quick question before we start wrapping up, Mary. We had this question for us, which is, all we discussed, what's different in memory care?
Oh, for me, and I'm the first off, I was very aggressive and I would try to unlock my memory care units and reintegrate all the residents together through education and participation, etc. But for me, it's magnified. Everything is magnified. And I was thinking back to the start of our conversation where we were like, how do we show success in life enrichment and activities? Well, what are we doing right now? Are we just saying I had this many activities and this was the how many people showed up? Or are we creating quality indicators and KPIs, key progress indicators against the preparation phase, or like this is how many people that I interviewed this week, and then this is how many people that participated in the process of creating the life enrichment program. And then, yes, this is how many people came, but really the meat is in like the path. And honestly, I hear a lot of feedback when things don't go right at Point Click Care is like, the solution's fine. The experience you gave me walking to the solution sucked. And so I think about like, the music therapy is great. I loved that, but getting me from my waking up in the morning to music therapy, how was that? Or lunch to music therapy, or like 10 minutes before to music therapy. Everything's just magnified and slowed down, which to me was really
Yeah.
cool because we had a lot more chances to get it right because we were so hyper focused on a smaller timeline. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Oh, totally. I think I mean, that's indeed my humble opinion is that I think memory care in a way is readier for value-based care.
Oh
Well,
yeah.
one, because it's more expensive, right? It's much more expensive. And in memory care, a little bit like skill, but we tend to have more processes, right? And I don't think we should have processes for everything. I think processes kill creativity. Processes, the wrong ones, can kill community. But I think that when you have the right processes, and some of which is about elevating engagement, I think that's great. So,
Well, and even if you
but
go
anyway,
back, to like if you go back to this list,
yeah,
like, right, you're right.
yeah,
We had the most detailed basic resident record. We had the ability to change service in a millisecond in a memory care
yeah.
environment. And we had more partnerships coming in and out of that section of the community than anywhere else. So I would say I would agree with you, Charles. The opportunity is magnified and we're further along.
So for once, you agree with me.
It's like the 15th time today, at least.
Okay.
I love these comments.
As yeah, the comments are great. And actually, let me pause here and say kudos to anyone that has taken any step to be educated, whether it's a 2-day seminar, whether it's MEPAP 1 from NCAP, any certification, or all the way down to, again, these advanced degrees of CTRS. Kudos to all of you, and kudos to anyone doing it today. Again, Murray and I are biased, we'll say it again, but we believe that any step you take in that direction is just a good step for our industry, for your residents, and for the senior living that we all deserve, right? Like Murray and I, we probably share the same idea, or I don't know if you thought about it, but we want to build a place we want to live in. And there are gaps today, and I think we want to improve on that. So as we
Mandy,
wrap up,
Mandy
yeah,
asked
go ahead.
Mandy asked kind of a quick question in the comments here, and it was
Sure.
just around, ultimately she said that she's really progressed her operations, but she said with limited staff and time, how do I keep doing more and more? And that's a very hard question, Mandy. I mean, my company as a technology company and my competitors in the industry need to make technology easier to direct your attention faster, to prioritize information, so that you do the things that are most important first. So there's that side of it. But a lot of the things we talked about, if you have a complete resident record, if you have a real-time service coordination mechanism, and if you have stronger partnerships, you will save time. And then the third thing I'll just say is more generic, which is I always just, in my paper world, I always just tried to focus on reducing the mundane. So a part of our community meeting, because I didn't have staff meetings, I just had community meetings, was What are we doing right now that feels mundane, that feels wasteful, that feels like you shouldn't be doing it? And we would get them out on the table and we would start talking about it. And if you focus on reducing the mundane, whatever it is, and just asking the question, oh, well, why are we doing that? Why are we documenting that? Who's using that? For what reason? From 20 years ago? Oh, we don't need it anymore. I just saved some time. So squeezing as much time as you can. I just wanted to respond to her there.
No, but it's great, Murray. You completely hijacked the agenda because you kind of jumped into the next one, the last one, which is how do you invite the audience to take a next step? So I'll start and then you can add. I think, and I'm sorry, I forget the name of the person who made that comment.
Mandy.
Yeah, Mandy. I think, you know, sometimes it feels a little bit like we don't, obviously we would use better budget, more teams and all of that. But sometimes, like Murray was saying, it is slight changes. Like, are you collaborating with your clinical team, right? And if you're not, and if they don't want to, it's not your fault. It's your organization. So the next step for you is to talk to your administrator. And maybe it's not a place for you if you have these big dreams that are kind of slowing you down, right? So I'm not saying that you all want to quit jobs tomorrow, but the point is that very often you'll see quicker changes by working as a team and advocating for that, if that makes sense. And that again goes back to one of my biggest thing, which is get credit for the work that you do, brag about it, get your family members who are happy to brag about the stuff you do, get your residents to talk about it to your nurse and your administrator, and just have more than you advocate for the amazing work you do. So Mary, I don't know if you want to add one last thing before we wrap up, but I thought that's pretty important as well.
Yeah, I completely agree with everything that you said there. So I was a swimmer growing up, and I've been reflecting as the Olympics approach on by the time I got into college swimming, I was talking about millisecond, hundredths of a second was achievement, right? I got one hundredth of a second faster, and that would be a really good achievement. And that just came with practice and repetition and instilling in me, myself, in my brain what was important. And so if I translate that into senior living and I go back to my roots, a good environment, paying attention to the environmental, the emotional, and the physical, creating communities where people want to come together. And I just tried to do that every single day. I would shave milliseconds off the time that it would take me to do that every day. And not to mention, I grew an army of people behind me doing it too. So when we all shaved 100th of a second, we were shaving minutes off of our time. So that's just what popped into my head.
Thank you so much, Murray. One last thing you want to share? Any last minute thought?
Thank you all for everything that you're doing. Our industry is shining right now, and we will continue to shine as long as we show up and we do the best that we can. Perfect, the enemy of better. We're all just here to do as best we can day in and day out, and consider me an ally. If I can do anything for you, please reach out to me on LinkedIn. I would love to be a part of your community at any way possible.
Thank you so much. And actually, I something I wanted to do, but I forgot to, is actually do exactly that, Mary. Just give me 1 second. Everyone, I strongly urge you to consider Mary's invitation, which is simply to connect with him. I hope you got a good feeling about him. He's a great human being. He's beyond passionate, and he can help. So if you want to reach out, his is LinkedIn. And he also kindly agreed to for us to share his email. So I put his LinkedIn profile on the chat. And I'm going to do it again because it's kind of busy right now. But if you want to reach out also by email, please do that. If you want to send a Be Well message to Charles, who can join us, also his email is charles@iqshield.com. Feel free to ask him to be well and get some rest. And my email is there. And thanks so much, Murray, for joining. That was awesome.
Have a wonderful afternoon, everybody.
Take care, Murray.
Bye-bye.
Everyone, if you want to just say, see you, Murray. Thank you so much. Actually, thank you. That was great. Yeah. Everyone, just as a quick snapshot, I wanted to share exciting new upcoming webinars that we have. The one next week is really, really cool. It's going to be about, we have three individuals from different organizations who are going to share about success and lessons learned from resident engagement champions. And I'm very excited about that conversation. The next event we have is Finding Joy in Dementia Care on August 6th. And then we have a very cool upcoming trend, coming trend now actually, in the industry called the CMS guide model. I don't know if anyone is in memory care. You probably heard a little bit about that. So we're going to have a great session. And then one of my favorite events of the year is our annual Decoding Dementia Gathering, where we spend a very good amount of time. There's usually 3 sessions, and it's all about memory care and dementia care. So with that, I want to thank you all for joining. Brian, thank you so much for helping us coordinate these webinars. And I wish all of you a great afternoon and this morning, regardless of where you are. Thank you very much for the work you do. It's awesome.